Federal Drive is presented by GEHA, Government Employees Health Association, proudly providing health and dental benefits to federal employees and their families. Visit GEHA.com.
The Department of State is trying to reorganize itself while also adopting the functions of USAID and evaluating all foreign assistance programs. Any one of those is a big project on its own. Taking them on simultaneously presents serious challenges. State's own Office of the Inspector General recently reported on how well the effort is going. And here with more details is the Acting Inspector General at State Department, Arne Baker. Mr. Baker, thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you so much, Terry. It's a pleasure to be on FNN again.
Well, we're going to talk about this new report that you all have just released. It talks about several key issues with the Department of State USAID consolidation. Could you bring us up to speed a little bit on the background of the situation?
Sure. Absolutely. So State OIG started work on this project after the proposed realignment was announced earlier this year. In May, we issued 2 final work products on this topic, an information report highlighting lessons learned from past reorganizations and realignment efforts, and the evaluation we're talking about today, which focuses specifically on integrating numerous USAID functions into the Department of State. So what we're discussing today is really just the very beginning stages of the state USAID transition and the changing roles and responsibilities regarding foreign assistance.
So this has been a pretty dynamic process. It's all happened very quickly. What did you find were the most pressing challenges of the consolidation?
Yeah, it's true that the magnitude of the proposed changes really made strategic planning, workforce planning critical. The department's set up a transition working group that requested department bureaus and offices absorbing USAID functions and foreign assistance programs to provide input into positions they'd require for the realignment. So I think staffing is certainly one of those key challenges you're talking about.
As I understand the report, one of the findings is that the consolidation was announced long before there was a workforce plan. Normally, it would be the other way around. So how has the reversal of that process impacted the ability to move forward with the consolidation?
So after receiving department input and considering budgetary requirements, the Secretary approved 308 U.S. direct hire positions and 370 locally employed staff and 40 personal services contractors to take on critical program and oversight support positions. And we did take note of the importance of strategic planning on the personnel side in our work. So we found that the department made some of the staffing decisions, but did not have a comprehensive strategic approach for the changes. And as we identify in the report, the Government Accountability Office states that strategic workforce planning should precede any staff realignments or downsizing so that staff levels don't inadvertently produce skills gap or other adverse effects. So we found also that the department created an assistance transition working group, and officials provided input on positions that they required for the realignment. But USAID officials kind of moved forward with reduction in force despite some uncertainty about department personnel requirements. So in short, this is definitely an area that we view as critical to the success of the effort.
So given where we are now, are you seeing efforts with the Department of State to mitigate some of those risks that you just articulated? Maybe, the fact that they didn't have a plan for wherever it was going to go, or they didn't exactly know what skill sets they needed and where they were going to put it. Where are they now with addressing those critical issues?
Yes. So the Department of State concurred with all 3 recommendations we made in our report. So the report was issued in late May, and we're still awaiting kind of an initial compliance response that outlines, the proposed course of action. But what we know so far is that the department acknowledged that work on the realignment would continue past July 1st and indicated the Secretary of State would ensure that bureaus, offices, and overseas posts with realignment responsibilities have appropriate resources as well as capacity to manage implementation. The second thing that we know is that the Deputy Secretary of State for Management Resources will take responsibility for implementation of the plan after the sunset of the Assistance Transition Working Group I mentioned a minute ago. And regarding a strategic workforce plan, the department indicated that the department will ensure that staffing is appropriately aligned with realignment goals. So very early days right now, but that's what we know initially.
I'm speaking with Arne Baker. He's the Acting Inspector General at the U.S. Department of State. So, Mr. Baker, could I ask you to just go back a little bit and refresh our memory on the recommendations that you made in this report?
Yes, absolutely. In our report, we identify three key needs: a need for the department to designate a leader for the USAID realignment effort, a need to establish formal, measurable implementation plan, and a need to employ strategic workforce planning when moving forward with the realignment. The Department of State concurred with all of these recommendations and acknowledged that work on the realignment would continue past July 1st and indicated that the Secretary would ensure that bureaus, offices, and overseas posts with realignment responsibilities will have appropriate resources to manage the process. They indicated that the Deputy Secretary of State for Management and Resources would take responsibility for the implementation plan. And regarding a strategic workforce plan, the department indicated that it would ensure that staffing is appropriately aligned with realignment goals.
The Department of State is going through its own workforce realignment. Do you anticipate any challenges that realignment might present to the realignment of the USAID functions into state?
I think it's too early to tell on our side. Many of the changes are still under active consideration as the department finalizes its own reorganization plan and makes decisions about an ongoing foreign assistance review that affects State Department as well as USAID programs. So we are continuing to monitor and track that.
Your report mentions various legal and operational challenges, including the need for some legislative changes and the integration of IT systems. What are the most significant legal hurdles that this realignment faces?
Well, it's a highly complex process with a lot of moving parts. And I think just on the operational and personnel side, we have hiring freeze and extension to deferred resignation offers and a significant reduction of force possibly pending in the Department of State itself. And in addition to the integration of the USAID's global workforce of nearly 10,000 people. I mentioned also the foreign assistance pause and review that's ongoing. At USAID alone, this included the termination of about $76 billion in awards and another $78 billion in continuing active awards. And so the USAID programs being realigned include significant global health, humanitarian assistance, and other programming. So there are a lot of complex moving parts. It's sort of hard to pick one of them as more important than the other, if that makes sense.
It makes perfect sense. I'm imagining a circus juggler with 1,000 balls in the air. It is a real textbook leadership challenge here, managing your own reorganization, adopting another, rethinking all of your integrated policies and programs and strategies, and then trying to develop a workforce strategy and an implementation plan around this particular reorganization. So just having listed off the problem areas, let me ask you what your sense is about the success of the proposed realignment. How would you define success for this activity, and how is the progress towards that goal?
Well, I think as we've written in our report, the measure of success is for the department to define an implementation plan. And so one of our recommendations is to develop an implementation plan and define what success looks like. And I think we will be working with the department to review as they respond to our recommendation, the milestones and benchmarks they set for success, and that in turn for us will be one measure of effectiveness. I would also add, we will be doing additional oversight work in the future as this unfolds and determining how we can help the department and improve its operations. So
you will be following up, and we could maybe look for that report in the future.
Well, how we follow up and what particular is under discussion currently. So we will absolutely be doing future work on the topic of important State Department programs. I would state, and just for the record, that the Department of State has been responsive, cooperative, and helpful every phase of this evaluation. We look forward to providing continuing oversight of the department wherever its mission is, and our goal is always the same, which is to improve the efficiency and effectiveness of department programs and operations. So that's the spirit in which we operate and in which we look forward to continuing to do our work.
I've been speaking with Arne Baker. He's the Acting Inspector General at the U.S. Department of State. Mr. Baker, thank you for joining me today.
Thank you very much, Terry, and a pleasure to speak with you today.
We'll post this interview at federalnewsnetwork.com/Federal Drive. Subscribe to the Federal Drive wherever you get your podcasts.